Hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our webinar. We're going to educate you about sustainability at U.S. business schools. The topic is educating for impact, sustainability at U.S. business schools. We have two guests today from two terrific programs that are leading the way in sustainability. Carrie Carfagno, the program director for the Masters in Environment and Sustainability Management at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business, and Kat Ernst, the director of the Impact MBA at Colorado State University's College of Business. If you want to know what is taught in a sustainability program or an MBA with a sustainability slant, stay tuned. You'll get every answer you can possibly imagine. We're going to go over what the curriculum is like, what the admission standards are, and what the career outcomes are for graduates. Let's start with Carrie. Give us an overall of your program, the Masters in Environment and Sustainability Management, and tell us how long it's been around.
Oh, sure. So we often, in short, for the Environment Sustainability Management Master's Program, call it ESM. So you'll hear me refer to it that way often. And our ESM program is in its fourth year, and we are a program that has basically been a partnership between the McDonough School of Business and the Earth Commons Institute. And the reason for that is we have this 50-50 split where we bring in the best professors from the business school, and we also bring in the best science professors from our institute. When we do those two together, what we get is something that really is a lot of fun. So for example, it's a 10-month interdisciplinary master's program. It merges that business and science. It is a cohort-based model, and it's 10 months long. So students are graduating in May and hitting some of that hiring cycle. We do have a capstone that's part of our program for world experience and partnerships. I can talk about that a little bit later. But one example of why that program works so well for us is we bring in a professor that does scientific measurement. The students all get greenhouse gas protocol certification in that program. And then when they get to supply chain with a thought leader, Professor Agrawal in supply chain management, he can go straight into a deeper dive on that topic because they already have some scientific and data background, and he hits the ground running. So there are a lot of things that we're excited about with the way we've designed our program.
And Carrie, you teach in the program as program director, right?
I do. It's an absolute honor. I get to begin the program with a leading teams for performance and impact course that merges communication, communicating scientific concepts and data heavy concepts to be effective. I teach in a management program in the introductory course, and then I get to run the capstones.
And I should mention that, every year we basically honor what we call the best and brightest graduates from business programs. Not surprisingly, Carrie has been nominated twice as a favorite professor of best and brightest students from the school. So that's a great accolade. Kat, tell us about the program at Colorado State.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Our Impact MBA program is a full-time on-campus MBA at Colorado State. We are entering our 20th year, so we've been doing this for quite a while, and we focus fully on integrating business sustainability into our core classes, as well as leveraging a lot of interdisciplinary elective courses from across campus to blend that business sustainability with the scientific basis for sustainability. We define sustainability a little bit more broadly, so we also include corporate responsibility and social initiatives and community under that umbrella. And all of our students are required to complete a 400-hour summer fellowship on a sustainability project with a company as a paid experience over the program. So we've woven in experiential learning into the program as well. And we're a 3-semester program, so students start in the fall and graduate the following December, and it's sort of accelerated in that format. We've crammed a lot of content into 3 quick semesters, and we recruit students from all around the world and really bring those diverse perspectives to the table, and have tried to integrate that similarly into our curriculum.
I want to say, I think it's also notable that the two schools we have are in two important places in terms of sustainability. Colorado, which has long been known as a state in the United States that's much more environmentally aware than many others, and Washington, D.C., of course, where public policy influences different initiatives on sustainability in the U.S. Now, Kerry, how do you define sustainability in the context of your business school's mission?
Well, when we look at sustainability, it really is this idea of how do we integrate environmental stewardship and social responsibility with long-term economic value. One of our key takeaways that we begin, even our first class, but is threaded throughout, is this recognition that we will argue and support and defend the concept that you always get financial long-term benefit when you keep sustainability and the environment in mind and when you prioritize it as part of your decision-making process. Short term, it could vary on a lot of variables, but we will argue that long term, it will always turn out to be a logical priority. Part of that with what we do and our time is that it's also closely aligned with our Jesuit values. And that really works for us because ethics, service, and care for our common home has been a value at the university since its very beginning. And so to have that be embodied in our program is something that it's just kind of natural in our DNA. We do look for the strategic advantage that comes from considering the environment. It's not just compliance. It's not just do the minimum. It's the idea of how does the transitions that we know are coming, how do we make that basically an advantage, not only for a company and organization, but for the world around it.
Right. And in addition to the actual courses that you might have on sustainability or ESG topics, I'm imagining that these themes are integrated into the core MBA courses like finance, strategy, and operations. How do you do that, Kerry?
Well, one of our fun parts about this is each professor has the examples, brings up the conversation. So you're still learning accounting, finance, strategy, economics. You're still doing strategic investing, but you are doing all of those throughout that lens of sustainability. One of my favorite stories is one of our finance professors that said, I just love the ESM students. They learn IRR, they learn net present value, but they immediately think about how can I apply this for impact? How can I use this to have a consequence or have like an encouragement that something should be done a certain way. And there's something about that mindset that our strategy professor says by the time they get to me, they are just living the strategic world because they're already applying strategy to all the other business courses. So it's a fun way to have that integrated throughout all the coursework.
Now, Kat, I'm assuming that in your Impact MBA, the same is true, that you're integrating these themes into your core courses.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, similarly, so the Impact MBA is one of three MBA programs at the College of Business, and we share some faculty, but we have a lot of custom courses designed for those different programs. And in the Impact MBA, we have a core class, for example, around economics of ecosystems and biodiversity. That's not a common core class at an MBA program. And then in finance and in stats and all these other courses, the students are exclusively with other Impact MBA students. And so they're able to really drive that conversation. The faculty have chosen case studies. They're choosing companies to dig into that are focused on sustainability. And so there are both courses and then also just the nature of the students and the discussion that really blends that into core classes where you're also learning about accounting and you're learning about statistics and you're learning marketing and those core business values and disciplines. So absolutely, it's very integrated into our curriculum.
And Kat, you mentioned earlier the paid internship over the summer. So obviously your students are getting real world experience in sustainability. I wonder if you can give us a little taste of what kind of projects they work on.
Yeah, it's probably one of my proudest aspects of our program because it really does allow students to take what they've learned in the classroom and immediately put it to work, and it gets them that hands-on experience. There are all sorts of different types of projects that our students complete. So as a team, we're out curating projects from companies, and they range from a lot of them are going to be in the sustainability reporting space, helping a company collect their data and report on it, and then come up with management plans to address some of the needs. Sometimes we work with manufacturing facilities and companies. So, for example, a couple summers ago, we had a student working with Ready Foods, which is a large food manufacturer based in Denver, and they were doing an analysis of the utilities, and they were helping walk the floor and interviewing all the employees on the floor of the manufacturing facility, and they identified a really inefficient use of hot water at a specific sink that didn't need to be run that way, and they were able to implement a really simple solution and save the company thousands of dollars immediately on just not having to heat the hot water. But it was because of a comprehensive approach and a really thorough and thoughtful analysis of starting with looking at utility bills and identifying where there are some peaks, and then engaging with the employees. And so they approach projects like that from a very kind of comprehensive way, and are guided through that with faculty support, and with mentorship from their supervisors at the companies.
And I'm assuming that students do this in teams and then ultimately present their solutions to the senior leadership of a company, right?
Actually, these are individual projects that our
Oh,
students are assigned to
individual. Okay.
individually. And so it's really more of we design it more like a mini consulting project for a student. But yes, they do ultimately present these to their employers at the end of the summer. And whatever the key deliverable that the employer requested is what they would turn in then as their assignment to the program to receive their credit as well.
Wow. So that's really amazing because obviously if you're doing it on an individual level, you have to
Mhm.
find a lot more
Yes.
projects than if you did it on a team basis.
Correct. And they're all paid by the company. So we're out soliciting like 20 to 50 full-time paid jobs over the summer for our students. It's a big lift, but honestly, it's been super rewarding because we have been able to build an amazing network of companies across the US. A lot of them are based in Colorado because that's where we are. But that are doing this work and they have bandwidth constraints themselves, and they need some extra support, and our students can come in and make a really immediate impact in that place of work and get hands-on experience right away. So it's really a win-win for the companies and for the student.
Yep. Carrie, how does McDonough provide students with real world experience in sustainability?
Absolutely. We also really recognize the same thing, that practical application, having the students understand how to do that. Kat and I, both of our programs understand the value of actually learning about something and then going out and doing it. I'd already mentioned that our students all do the LCA, so the Greenhouse Gas Protocol LCA Scope 3 certification. And it really is fun because they learn about it in the classroom. And then for several years now, one of our capstones has been calculating Scope 3 for a company. And as they do that, they realize, oh, the data's messy. Oh, we have to clean up so much. Just that idea of, yes, I've done it from a case study standpoint, I've done it in the classroom, and now I'm living it. And so I think that capstone projects is just one of those things that becomes so important. Our capstones are structured a little bit differently. They are done throughout the second half of the program. So the students are finished in 10 months, and they're done in teams of 5. We really love, because we're a cohort model and that team mentality, we put in some really meaty projects, and then they have to deliver them and learn how to work with one another. They're really, for some of the projects, well, actually all of the projects, you could not complete it if you weren't working with one another, relying on one another, dividing and conquering, and cooperating. So with that, good example that some of our projects that we've done, we worked with L'Oreal and did a project looking at their badging and assessing, is it worth doing the green badge? Are you getting your ROI? Are there other ways to let people know which project or products really offer something? The lead on that project was so pleased with what the students were doing, they actually brought them all up to New York to the corporate office. And from DC, that's a train right away, but still brought them up there and had them present to the chief sustainability officer. And it was really fun. And some of their work actually got into their investor presentation that was done at literally at the senior leadership level because of it. So that ability to work on projects like that. Another project last year worked with the Greek FEA, which is a hospitality organization in Greece, in looking at a bespoke P&L that really understood for every euro put into a sustainability project, what was the return on investment?
Mm.
Because the NDA, I can't say what the number was, but it was good. And so that was part of the real fun of it, is being able to determine what that looked like so that they can ongoing use this formula, use these spreadsheets to be able to continue looking at their ROI. And so while our projects vary widely, similar to how, Kat, you work with different organizations and based on their need, it's been a lot of fun to see our students rise to the occasion. One of the projects 2 years ago was a startup company, and the students helped put together their Series A funding pitch and did the demand analysis for them.
Oh,
Before that project was over in 5 months, they'd actually acquired their Series A funding. So to
Mm.
see the students work on that, develop it, work with our professors, myself, and organizations to basically put together all the different pieces from a financial standpoint, market demand, and do the communication piece at the end, has people appreciate what's happening, has been a lot of fun for us.
And if it's not obvious to those who are watching this, I want to tell you that when you're involved as a student in a project like this, you have something meaningful to talk about during your interview process. So it really helps you land the job that you want because you can get into the nitty-gritty of what you did for a company or an organization, and how you presented it and sold it to the leadership, because that's exactly what you will ultimately be doing later on when you actually start with the company.
Mhm.
So Kerry, let me ask you this: what are employers generally looking for in sustainability-focused students, and how does McDonough prepare graduates to meet those needs?
Yeah. Um, so what people are looking for, I think, varies widely depending on the needs of that company, that organization, and that industry. But I do think this understanding of how do I learn to learn? How do I keep up with it, have critical thinking? And I think a lot of that does come from the capstone, this idea that I've learned all this already and I've already learned how to apply it, which means I can do that successfully for your company. It has been a lot of fun to have alums of Georgetown reach out and say, hey, I'm hiring. What have you got? Even yesterday, I spent some time. We have a dedicated career person that is just for our program. And she and I sat down for two different requests we got for internships. And there are part-time internships the students can do. While we are a full-time program and pretty intense, many of our students do part-time internships. So we recommended 5 people that we felt would be a good fit. And a lot of times they are appreciating the greenhouse gas protocol certification. We have an
Mm,
optional, the Bloomberg ESG certification students can get while they're here, but they learn LCA, they know how to use R, data analytics, data visualization. And for a lot of, I would say, if we're looking at the whole picture, all of them, anyone that's hiring right now is valuing the data piece, the fact that our students not only learn R, but know how to use it and have it in probably, I'd say, a minimum of 4 classes where they're applying it. Because of the cohort model, our professors all know they have the capability, which means they can add in a data component to their assignments that they might not be able to do if it was a one-off course. And so I think that piece is a differentiator, but I think part of it is really this idea that you can take all the foundational blocks of business, but you've already shown that you know how to use that through the sustainability lens.
right. Now, Kat, how would you answer that question? What employers are looking for in your students?
Yeah, a lot of similarities in Carrie's answer, obviously. When we launched 20 years ago now, we launched as more of an entrepreneurial program because there weren't really jobs in this space. And so we were training students how to start companies that were doing this work. But
Mm,
around 6 years ago, we did a big assessment of the landscape and we were talking to companies specifically about what their needs were. And they kept telling us there was a gap. The company leadership was setting these big, very ambitious sustainability goals: net zero by 2050, net zero by 2030. And they have engineers on hand to, implement a solar project or whatever it was. But there was this gap between how do you achieve these goals? How do you assess all the opportunities out there and decide what has the highest ROI? How do we translate this sustainability goal into business value, into competitive advantage, and really make that translation between the business and the science. And so that's how we designed our program, was around trying to fill in that gap. We've had a lot of success doing that. We have a lot of students graduating, going out into the world and filling in that gap. So part of it is the application of sustainability to business, and that weaving that into the integration of the core. Part of it is through some of the kind of specific skills, like Carrie was mentioning, like LCA. We have LCA classes as well. So that an LCA is a life cycle assessment, right? So you can actually take a product and start to look at it at the component level and the sort of like the ingredients of it and what goes into it and what does that mean? What implications does that have in our environment, in our natural world? We deliver a lot of professional development education as well to our students as co-curricular options to give them trainings on specific sustainability platforms. So for example, we've done trainings on the fundamentals of sustainability accounting credential levels 1 and 2, so that that's a skill they can actually bring into their employer, into the workplace, and say, here's a framework we can apply right away to determine what's material to my business, what's critical when I think about the future, the long-term future from a sustainability perspective. What impacts does my business have on the world, and what impacts does the world have on my business? And being able to really understand that conversation both from the science perspective and from the business perspective. So, so those are some of the ways we do it, both through curriculum and through co-curricular learning, as well, of course, as the fellowship opportunity, so they actually can put some of that into effect. So, so yeah, we sort of try to check that box in many ways.
Great. Now, Kat, bring us through the curriculum step by step. I wonder
Yeah.
if you can tell us um, what the journey really looks like. So you start when, and then you take what kind of courses,
Mhm.
and then out of the core courses, how many electives, if you have electives, do you have to choose from, and what kind of courses are offered?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So all of our students start in the fall. We are also a cohort-based model. So we select a cohort, and you do all of your core classes together as one cohort. There's one section for each class. And in the first semester, from August to December, you're taking accounting, you're taking statistics, you're taking marketing, but those are all just with your Impact MBA cohort, and all have this. So you're really addressing sustainability from the beginning. But the kind of level setting sustainability course for that first semester is the Sustainable Strategies course. And so that's where you're really diving deep into the industry and into business operations and approaches to sustainability. That's your first semester. In your second semester, you're addressing finance and supply chains and project management. In both semesters, you have elective courses. So of our 44 credits, students have 13 elective credits to choose from, and those electives can really focus on they can focus more on business courses, or they can go outside the College of Business into the College of Natural Resources. So some of the elective classes that we have are topics around foundations of greenhouse gas accounting, topics in climate change. We have a course on sea level rise. We have a whole course on strategies for e-waste.
Mm.
There's a course in the College of Business on corporate social responsibility, where students actually get a small stipend and are instructed to actually do a project that is going to have an impact. And then they share those projects with each other, and it's something that's actually having an impact in the real world. So we also have ESG investing courses and sustainability accounting courses as electives that allow students to dig deeper into those areas. All of that will help prepare you for your summer. So you do 2 semesters of coursework, you do your summer of fellowship work, and you come back for one final full semester of courses, and then you graduate. So we have graduation in December every year. We do
Great.
have an option for students to opt into a dual degree with the Master of Finance as well. It's a smaller subset of students, but there's so much opportunity in the finance space that a couple finance courses in the MBA wasn't sufficient for a lot of students. So we blended with the Master of Finance. Those students stick around a little longer because they have a lot more content to complete. But yeah, that's the overarching flow of our curriculum.
And I'm imagining that in that final semester, is it all electives at that point or not?
It's largely electives. There's still one key core class for everybody that's around managing in a global context, and that
Mhm.
last class is a really nice opportunity for the whole cohort to stay together and to celebrate the completion of their program together, because it's a lot, and they go through it together. And that, in any MBA program, your network is so critical, and that's being a cohort-based model really helps build that network across the students. And so they really want to celebrate that final semester together. But it is largely electives in that final semester, yes.
Right. Now, Carrie, be our Sherpa for the journey of your master's in environment and sustainability management.
I would love to. We start with a 3-week intensive in August. Typically, it's the first week in August. The students come in, they're together for 3 weeks together, all day, every day. And during that time, they get the course I mentioned, Leading Teams for Performance and Impact, through the sustainability lens. And they're really looking at how do you become effective both within our program as well as teamwork and leading and communicating once you get out into the work world. Part of that also is another course that's an introductory management course, Environment and Business and Sustainability Management. They take
Mhm.
those two together during that 3 weeks while they're getting oriented to DC, while they're getting to know the cohort, and they really bond as a group. Then they start in September and they'll go through what we call mods. They're 2 mods, which are basically half semesters each. So some of our courses span the entire semester, like our environmental science one courses, where they're really learning ecosystems, understanding the concepts that go along with some of the things Kat was talking about, sea level rise. At the same time they're doing that, they're taking accounting in the first half and then finance in the second, and they're building off of one another. And because it's a full cohort model, we really do have that ability for everyone to know what they've already been taught and build off of it. Part of that along with it is this idea of looking at data analytics. So they all learn R. And then for the first half, they really focus on just R and coding. And then in the second half, they're learning data visualization and storytelling, and a real focus on the idea that you can't just say we have this many of hectares of ice sheet melting. It's the conversation of what does that mean? What is the, like, how do you normalize the data in a way that when I say hectares, people go, oh, that's a lot. Oh, I understand if I have a hospitality industry in Miami, I should be more worried about sea level rise because of it. So we do a lot of this translation back to forth of so what when you hear data, particularly scientific data, and how do you make that accessible to the folks that you're talking about? During the same time in the fall, the students have the ability to join several organizations, Net Impact, of course, and some of the other ones that are business, but we also have within the business school some small business consulting opportunities where they apply, they partner with BCG mentors, and they do small business mentoring in the DC area for businesses. So they're getting those kinds of opportunities. If the students are really passionate about global, we're able to sponsor them so they can attend World Bank meetings in the fall, and then they have another meeting in the spring. And so we're complementing that being in the area, what opportunities they have, along with that core curriculum that they're getting. In addition to all these, we talk about it, they are getting the climate change. I talked about impact scientific measurement course, and that's where they get the scope 3. They actually get to play around with models and understand if we make these decisions in either policy or out in the world, what are the environmental justice impacts of it? What are the financial impacts? What does a decision make at JP Morgan, and how does that impact other areas? One of the areas that I teach is risk assessment and recognizing the disruption of risk and how much we really reward a stable company that has predictive profits. Environment is the single biggest reason that you get that instability in a company. And so being able to pull all those things together really help our students in the fall. Then when we get to the spring, they're going to have our environmental science, a second course that really focuses on natural human interactions. We focus on LCA. We talk about cities and infrastructure as really almost a living being if it's done well, and how that can help or hurt industries. We're also focusing on environment operating business models, which is our business logistics courses, and
Mm.
renewable energy. Part of our renewable energy is we have one course that focuses very much on energy transition and the business model around it. And we've got another course that brings in someone who had worked at the World Bank and looks at energy systems and demand from more of a global perspective. So they really get that kind of zoom in, zoom out tactical, as well as understanding the impact of it for decision making. During this time in the spring, they're also working on the capstones. And so they're spending a lot of time meeting with corporations, their company. One of the projects, for example, is with WWF. They're looking at nature-based solutions and looking at assessment of what makes, say, a JP Morgan or a Goldman Sachs or a BlackRock want to invest in a nature-based solutions. What are the parameters that make that successful? So as they do those kinds of assessments, they're also looking at firm analysis and strategy, responsible investing, and focusing on all those pieces as they come together to make something effective. So we do have some poster sessions where they really spend their time being able to talk about what they've learned and articulate it, where we invite leaders from all over to share their work that they've generated. And it's new data by the spring. In the fall, they're mastering data. And then by the spring, they're learning how to basically say, I've generated data. And then we do a poster session during DC's Climate Week where they share that information. And we bring in leaders from organizations, mostly all over DC, but obviously regional as well. One of the last things with that is they graduate in May, and it is very intensive for those 10 months, but that means they get out on the job market in May.
Right. What a whirlwind. My goodness. And in terms of breakdown between core and electives, I'm imagining that maybe 80% of the program is core, or what's the breakdown like?
That's a great question. We're actually a little bit different in that we are all core.
Okay.
We took a long look at electives, and the real challenge we had was to graduate in 10 months and have this foundation that you can build off of. We really needed to have it be for a 10-month program everyone's taking the same courses. The benefits of that are a professor knows what a student's already had and can build off of it. As I mentioned before, say with LCA and supply chain, they can just build off that scientific measurement, but it does mean they are focused on the content in front. One of the things we do to complement that, though, is both projects within many of these assignments in the different courses, as well as with the capstone. They're choosing what they want to do, and they're able to find their passion within that. For example, we had a student that was really passionate about sustainable aviation fuel. We worked with the FAA here locally, created a capstone. 5 students went and worked with them to build a model that looked at feedstock throughout the United States,
Mm.
state by state. When that project was done, he and another student from that project were hired by the FAA. They created a position to have them continue growing SAF research. So it is that idea that if people and our students have a clear passion coming in, we work with them to make sure they've got an outlet for it.
Now you slipped in a few acronyms there, Carrie.
Oh, it's a
FF,
habit, terrible habit.
FFA is what?
So that is basically Federal Aviation Association. And so
Okay.
basically they're handling all aviation decisions that are at a federal level in the United States. And then through that, SAF is sustainable aviation fuel. How do you take feedstock, whether that's everything from corn waste or sugarcane waste and ethanol, turn it into jet fuel that can be used so that we have a smaller carbon footprint, for the aviation industry.
And I'm assuming your reference to the WWF was the World Wildlife Fund, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And they're
Good.
just down the street. Last time we met with them, we joked, do we walk to you? Do we do it on Zoom? Is everyone in the office to meet? There's a real fun part about being in DC where you get to work on some of these things. Just like Climate Week, we're able to put some activities in there that are easy to get to, or we host in the building for other folks.
Now, Carrie, are there student-led initiatives or co-curricular things that also supplement the actual academic curriculum?
Absolutely. It's almost a problem how many there are for me to list them all, but it really is this idea that we have an ecopreneurship club that focuses on entrepreneurship that with a green bend. And they bring in speakers, the students work on projects, they help local folks. Ironically, building off of that, one of our capstones this year is working with the DOEE, Department of Energy and the Environment, on building out a more formal program where students can do small business environmental consulting for the DOEE with small businesses in the DC area. In addition to the normal projects that you have, if the students have a passion, we'll work with them to either start a club or have an activity. One of the fun things we've done is, this sounds a little bit silly, but we've got an environmental book club. And we'll pick a book, we'll talk about the book, but we have about a 50% of the time we're bringing in the authors. And so that's been a lot of fun as well, where they're either local or they come in by train or they fly in and we talk about things. Same thing we brought in Ramon Mendez as a speaker who talked about how they took Uruguay in just 5 years to, at the time, 75, it's now 98% renewable energy. Each fall, we also have a themed sustainability summit that's done through McDonough School of Business. And that, again, is bringing in world leaders from all over. So this past year, I had the privilege of being able to have a fireside chat with Marissa McGowan from L'Oreal. We brought in leaders from Ford, from Gap. In the past, we've also had United Airlines talk about sustainable aviation fuel. And it's a 2-day seminar where the students get to be part of it, welcome, and host these leaders.
Great. Kat, I know you mentioned co-curricular activities earlier, but I wonder if you might, share any student-led initiatives and dig a little
Absolutely.
bit deeper.
Yeah, and similarly, there are so many, sometimes it can be hard to know how to focus in. One of the main student-led initiatives that we currently have in the College of Business is not just with Impact MBA students, it's a broader college initiative, and it's the Sustainable Business Club. And one of the amazing things that they've done is they decided it was really important to them as students, both in grad and undergrad level, to add credentials and to really focus on certifications because they see that as a real job benefit and giving them a leg up in the career search. So they work with the International Society for Sustainability Professionals, ISSP. One thing about the sustainability space, as you've noticed, is it is acronym soup. So I always try really hard to define those, but ISSP, they offer the SEA credential, which is the Sustainability Associate. there's trainings, right? And there's curriculum they have to go through, there's a test they have to take, and there's a cost associated with it. So the club does a lot of initiatives to deliver trainings and like study sessions for the exam. They raise money to help cover the cost of the exam for students, and they help students achieve this credential so that when they graduate and go look for a job, they can have this sustainability credential that is recognized in the community. So that's one of the kind of most, impactful initiatives that we've seen come out of students. From a co-curricular perspective, we're also always coordinating sessions similar to Carrie with sustainability leaders from around the world. So this fall, we had the sustainability director for Ball Corporation for North America. Ball Corporation makes like all of the aluminum cans, right? They're a huge global manufacturer. They happen to be based in Denver, which is really wonderful to have some big corporations like in our backyard that we're able to call on and to bring out and to speak to our students and give them those real world examples. So we've had speakers from a variety of companies like Ball Corporation. And where we have alumni, where we have connections, because of our outreach efforts through our for our sustainability fellowship, we have a lot of connections with companies and particularly with their sustainability offices. So we're able to call on that network regularly. So sometimes it's through panel discussions for students, sometimes it's through informal networking and mentorship. Sometimes we coordinate small lunches and with a sort of targeted group of students with specific areas of interest. So we do all of that as well. Our students also, I mean, it's really sweet. They're very, I think a lot of MBA programs may have a reputation to be very competitive, but our MBA program is extremely collaborative and they really bond together very quickly. So this year, our students coordinated a Friendsgiving with everybody, particularly with such an international cohort, was a really wonderful way to expose some of the international students to a U.S. tradition. And they do a lot of those kinds of initiatives on their own throughout the year. So it's really a family feel here, and there's always something new bubbling up that the students are pursuing and that they're proud of and that's important to them. And we do our best to support them through all that and enable them to pursue whatever their interests are.
Okay, I'm imagining that the answer to this next question for you is the paid internship, but I'm not going to speak for you. So I wonder,
Let's find out.
yeah, what one sustainability course or initiative at your school that you're especially proud of?
You are correct. It is the fellowship. Yeah.
There you go.
So, when you're a student and you're in classes and, I've been here, I'm a graduate of this program myself
Oh,
from many years ago. And in the program, you're taking classes and you're learning the content and you're writing a paper and you're thinking about it a lot and you're talking about it a lot with each other. But then you go try to do the work and you're like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? How do I start this? How do I get going on something? How do I figure that out? Right. And that it can be very intimidating. And so I think that it is so important to give students that example and that opportunity in a guided environment, but it's still an independent project. And so it's something they can be very proud of and that they have full ownership over. But it is not something that they do alone. And so I think it's a really perfect experience for students and a great opportunity for them to start something. So we support them through that with helping them do a work plan before they initiate their work with the company. And I should say, but the way that we pair students up is we solicit all these projects and then we propose them to the student group. So we send them a giant PDF filled with job descriptions that we've pulled together. And then they apply to 5 of those as a minimum. Sometimes they apply to like 10 because there are a lot of them are very interesting, right? And they're like, I don't know how to choose. And then we match them based on the skills that they have and what the employer is looking for. And we introduce them to our employer at that point. And then they can work out a work plan to say, okay, what am I going to do in week 1? What am I going to do week 2? How am I going to engage with this company? How am I going to get to know the various stakeholders that I'm going to need to be working with? And what is my key deliverable that I'm going to be designing and developing and working on throughout? And what's my plan to approach that? So I think having that kind of guided experience through it, that support, but also then that ownership ownership and the ability to make it what you are going to make it and to really pursue it in your own way allows students to pursue what they're passionate about and develop that skill set and have something that they graduate with that they're very proud of. And they've worked over, we calculated it, we've placed 175 students over the last 5 years in these fellowships, and the students have conducted, I think it's over 70,000 hours of
Hmm.
sustainability work with companies. So
Wow.
it's we're very proud because it's not insignificant and it's a lot of work supporting our community and our companies in our backyard
True.
on their initiatives, making the world a better place. And so, yeah, that's for sure the thing we're most proud of.
All right. Carrie, one sustainability course or initiative that you're especially proud of?
You're asking me to choose between my children. Yeah, there is something that's just a lot of fun about the way that our program is designed to build off one another, to complement, to have a foundation, and you learn your finance and accounting, and then you get responsible investing, and you get economics and understand how they impact one another. And you add in the data courses and the science assessment. But I will say it probably is the capstone for exactly the reasons Kat's talking about, is that's the culmination when you apply all of these things together. I mean, I mentioned just about helping do Series A funding, doing that pitch for a company. You don't do that well if you don't understand accounting and finance and strategy and economics. You don't do that well if you don't understand the science behind the technology. This company is an HVAC company that uses sequestered CO2 as a natural coolant and completely takes forever chemicals and PFAS out of the HVAC process. Those students got invited to go to the conference on this where they talked about banning PFAS. So you've got environmental justice pieces. And to watch these students be able to talk about all of that and pitch and put that into the pitch, but also the conference was here in DC and we all went down the street. We went to the conference. The company we partnered with, paid for the students to have entry into it. And to hear them talk to people that were living in the industry, these were not HVAC professionals. These were students that were either doing a career pivot or were coming out of a few years of work in a variety of different places, consulting and other areas of expertise. Some of them had science-based undergrad backgrounds and were getting that business acumen. And they were holding their own. And there's something about
Hmm.
that that just makes me walk out of that so happy and so proud. At the end of our capstone project, they all do like a 10-minute summary, and we have those videos online. They're on YouTube. I can share the link. And to watch those students be subject matter experts in an area because they've worked together, they've learned, they've understood an industry and applied all these other courses is probably what's the most satisfying.
That's great. Yeah, why don't you provide the link for our users here? That would be really helpful. I guess you
Absolutely.
could even do it in the chat, uh,
Okay.
if you don't mind. So who comes? In other words, if I'm game for this, what are my classmates are going to be like? And I'm thinking that many people are going to be on the younger side, just out of an undergraduate program or just a few years out of an undergraduate program. Carrie, is that correct?
That is mostly correct. We have about 40% of our students are coming or recent grads. But of those, it is a lot of fun. We had one student that came in that was a recent grad, but she'd spent 3 summers interning at the EPA. So she comes in with a knowledge base that's really valuable for us. We also have students that are doing their I would say, course career pivot. And those are everyone. We've had people that are coming from consulting and say, I love consulting, but I want to do sustainability consulting. I want to have the
Mhm.
ability to do that. And so for that group, they're coming in and saying, hey, I've done this work and I want to pivot. We also have people that are working 4 to 10 years out of school and want to make sure that they're getting into the sustainability space. And then we have non-traditional students. We have students that are coming in. We've got one right now that I'm thinking about that is leaving the medical field in medical device and software and is actually looking at developing an ecotourism location and wants for their investors to be able to say, I understand this, I know, and I have this competency. So that non-traditional student is on the older side, but they work so well together in the idea that they all come in with expertise and they're learning from one another. And because of the cohort model, they really do get in those groups and value one another's expertise. Our international students are from all over the world, and it is a lot of fun. We had a project on commodities and looking at supply chain and value chain, and we were looking at lithium. And this student came in and said, hey, I'm from Peru, and I want to talk about lithium in Peru, which you don't think of when you think lithium triangle. So, it's now called the lithium rectangle.
Hmm.
But just that ability to have that contribution and the perspective from all over the world come in is always a benefit.
Great. Kat, what are the classmates? What do they look like in the Impact MBA?
Yeah, a lot of similarities to Carrie's program. Our average age is 28, but that's a little misleading
Oh,
as a number because the range is so wide. And so
mm,
we do have a handful of students always coming straight out of undergrad, really high performing students who have been engaged in these initiatives, have had great internships, have great academics. And we blend those with folks who are 20 plus year careers and pivoting into this new space. They really want to have an impact in the second half of their career. And then everybody in between. Most of our students have a business undergraduate degree as a background, but it's like 60%. And there's still a very large percentage that have a whole range of disciplines for undergrad. So a lot of environmental science degrees from undergrad. Sometimes we've had theater, we've had languages, we've had education. We're open to all different disciplines because to be honest, it's really important to us to have that diversity at the table. We're out trying to solve some of the world's most pressing global challenges, right? And you're not going to do that if you don't have diverse perspectives at the table. So that's really critical to find that wide range of students from all different walks of life. Similarly, we have a lot of international students in our program. Historically, we strive for a cohort of 50-50. And some years we have more luck at achieving that blend than others, but we also have very diverse students from diverse different backgrounds, all different countries around the world. Over the years, we've had students from 80 different countries represented in our
mm.
program. So a very wide range. And it is really amazing to see them learning from each other. So yeah, it's a great mix. There's no specific requirement around experience, but it is important to us to have that diversity.
And what does the application process look like, Kat?
Yeah, it's a pretty standard application process. You create an account online, you hit apply, you choose the program. We ask for a statement of purpose, your resume, a couple letters of reference. Once you have all of those components, then you'll be invited to an interview. So we do have an interview for every student, and so it's pretty straightforward. I think that what's unique about it is that while we don't require things like the GMAT or the GRE, we do require that you have some kind of focus, interest, alignment with sustainability. We've learned over the years that if you're looking for a traditional MBA, then you're not going to be happy in our program, and that's not what we are. And so that's what our application process is really designed for. We call it a holistic review, and it's really designed to find students that are interested and want to learn about sustainability and apply that in their futures in some way. So that's kind of our guiding light through the application process. Of course, you do need to have the academics, you do need to have the English proficiency, you do need to have a 3.0 GPA. There are other requirements, but that's primarily what we're looking for is your interest and focus on sustainability.
Great. And at McDonough, Carrie, what do the application requirements look like?
We're looking at very similar things when you talk
Mhm.
about, the GPA, the different priorities. And we are, as Kat said, really looking for that idea. Is this someone that wants to make an impact in the world? Do they want to take our degree and go out and solve some of the wicked problems we're dealing with? And do they want to partner with organizations to make a bigger impact? And some of the ways we do that when we look at it is we have a personal statement that we ask the students to do. We also have a video essay. It's basically this idea of like, what isn't apparent when we look at your application that you want us to know about? And that's where we get to know some of the things that really motivate our students. They go through, obviously their resume, their application. We're looking at transcripts. We also don't have a GRE requirement. We don't need that piece of it, but we are looking for some indicator that you can handle quantitative content and that you've had success in that area. One of my favorites was someone that had been out of school for a while and they wanted to apply and they had a BA undergraduate degree. And so they actually took a statistics course to show us that they could do the quant work. And so, just that idea that we're getting to know them and we get to know what they care about. We're definitely looking for a passion in sustainability. And we are, getting those folks that are coming from a science background, a business background. We've got an accountant right now sitting right next to a software engineer, sitting next to someone that also has an engineering degree, and someone that has journalism. Right now we have currently we've got a student that was at Politico as a reporter for a number of years and is coming into transition. but their knowledge in renewable energy is incredible because that's what they covered for years before they came into our program. So that idea that they're passionate about it and have that understanding. So while we are going to do the same things and look at the transcripts, we do have those optional essays to really get to know them. And that interview then we also have is by invitation with some of our alums, where they get to have that conversation. Not only that interview, but they get to talk to alums about their experience in the program. So they make sure that it's a fit. Similar, we want to make sure this is the place they want to be and that they understand what we offer and that it's what they want so that we have that synergy when we come in.
Right, makes sense. Now, Carrie, because you're in Washington, I want to ask you this. While this generation seems very interested in climate change and sustainability, and it's an important issue for them and for the world for that matter,
Mhm.
we currently have an administration in Washington that seems to have de-emphasized sustainability as a public policy issue. What do you make of that, and how does that factor into the prospects of your graduates?
It's a great question. I would say I get that from almost anyone who's thinking about the program and what's going on. Uh, I have a couple different thoughts on that. The first one is one of the first articles the students read that we discuss in that first 3 week intensive is an article that was written by actuaries. It's out of Exeter, and it's talking about the fact that by 2100, GDP will be impacted by roughly 45 to 50% based on climate change. And when you look at that, we can get into the machinations of short term, who likes what, who doesn't like what, but
Right.
the level of change that is going to be happening during these students' careers is significant. The World Economic Forum knows it. The Business Roundtable knows it. Leaders throughout the world know it. It's being talked about at Davos. This is not changing. Good business means you're looking at the risk and the disruption as well as the strategic opportunities that come with this level of change. And that is universal. And so when you look at signal versus noise, we talk about that from the business standpoint. In my mind right now, there's a lot of noise and it's real. I mean, we're seeing funding go away from IRA and some research funding. At the same time, there are trillions of dollars throughout the world being put into what we would define as sustainability priorities because it stabilizes business, it stabilizes profits, it's a strategic advantage. There's a reason why these things are out here. It's good business hygiene. And that is a universal truth. So companies are still hiring. They're doing it quieter. It might be a risk person. It might be a strategic. I mean, the titles are changing. You don't see ESG in titles as much, but it doesn't mean the opportunities aren't there.
Right. And Kat, I would assume you share that point of view.
100%. Yeah, we were really worried when we see some of the policies be rolled back. When we were recruiting last summer's group of fellowship hosts, and we had no problem securing the fellowships, right? So companies know that the climate is changing and that they have an impact on this world and the world will impact them and they cannot ignore it. And so yes, there may be some semantic differences. They might be not quite as public about some of their initiatives right now, but they are not stopping. Some of them are even leaning in more. The companies fully expect to be functioning, 5, 10 years down the road, right? And longer. And they have these longer term perspectives. And, if you're a manufacturer of anything, you're going to be impacted by it. You're already being impacted by it. You already need to be addressing these initiatives. So yes, there have been some adjustments, perhaps. We're advising students now that any job is a sustainability job, right? And it's really, in some ways, it's really true. You can find ways to impact
Mm.
that in whatever role you end up in. So yes, you may not have the word sustainability or ESG in your title, but that does not mean that you're not having that kind of an impact and a positive impact on the world through your work. So it might take a little bit more sleuthing or a little bit more creativity or trust through the process. But absolutely, companies are still doing this work. They're still hiring for it. And there's so much more to be done and will continue to be so much more to be done. And so there's great demand for these skills in the marketplace. Absolutely.
Great. Now, Kat, if someone in our audience is interested in getting more information on the Impact MBA, what do
Yep.
they do?
Great question. There are a couple easy things you can do. One is just go to impactmba.org. and it'll get you to our website. There is a request for information button there. You can fill out your information and send that in. That'll go to a team. We've got 3 wonderful recruiters that know our program super well. They'll tell you all about it. You can also find us on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn group called Impact MBA Sustainability Leaders Network, where you can engage with our alumni, you can engage with our corporate partners, and my team and I. So those are 2 easy ways to get more information other than just reading through our website, and following us on Instagram to see some student stories and things like that. But the best way is to go to impactmba.org and fill out the request for information button, and we'll send you all the information you could ever want, and we'll set up phone calls. You can come visit us on campus, whatever is helpful to you in the decision-making process.
Can they talk to you, Kat?
Absolutely. Yep, for sure. When you fill out that information, then the team will put you in touch with me. Absolutely. I'm easy to find. I can also put my email address directly into the chat here.
Okay, that's terrific. And Carrie, if people want to find out more about the Masters in Environment and Sustainability Management at McDonough, what do they do?
Very, very similar. You go to our website, the information's there, and it's basically the MST Georgetown EDU. You'll see the ESM program right there. You can click on the button for additional information, and you can click on those buttons to apply as well and begin the process. Also, I am absolutely happy to talk to students that are considering the program, want more detail, want to make sure that it's a fit for them and that it's the right application for them, to go into our program versus another one. Our MBA program does have a sustainability certificate, so you can get the MBA over 2 years and take some of the courses that are in the ESM program. But if you're doing the ESM, which is that science and business together really merged, you go in, you click on the buttons, and you go through that process. With that, also, if anyone, I'll put my email in there as well. They're more than happy to have those conversations with me. And we also have information sessions, not only with me, but with our whole team, including our dedicated career person. We do have the McDonough Career Center, obviously, as a resource, and many, many wonderful people there. And then we have one that is full-time, our ESM program, to make sure, especially with some of the changes we've talked about in administrations and priorities, that our students are finding places where they're a fit.
Great. What we've established here is that there are 2 great programs for you to pursue. And sustainability is here to stay. It's important. In fact, it's crucial. Uh, Many people are very interested in this space, and this is a way to learn how you can make a difference in sustainability and climate change, which isn't going to go away. It's going to be a bigger and bigger topic as we move forward, unfortunately, because of society's problems and challenges. So I want to thank Carrie at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. She is the program director for the Masters in Environment and Sustainability Management. And I want to thank Kat at Colorado State University's College of Business, who is the director of Impact MBA. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you really learned a lot about sustainability and what you can do to make a difference. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants.